This is Mommying While Muslim, recorded live and unedited. Watch as Zeba and Uzma record their podcast, see their reactions, and find out for yourself what all the buzz is about.
Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Momming While Muslim podcast. This is Uzma Jaffrey, and my beautiful co-host Zeba Hassan could not join us today because her Z1, her oldest, had a basketball game, and he said, "Mama, I really want you there." And we think that that is a perfectly good reason to not be able to record and do what is a priority, and that is being a mom. So Zeba is off doing that, and I thought I would just kind of give you a little bit of an update. I know y'all joined us, a lot of you joined us on Thursday for Gin Stories. So not going to talk too much about Halloween because that gets to be a controversial topic, but we can agree as Muslims that jinns are important to our tradition and our history. So if you didn't catch that, go and take a listen to it. And then I can kind of tell you about what I was doing while the gin stories were happening, because I certainly will not tune in to gin stories because they scare the junk out of me. So I'm just a big scaredy cat, so I can't do it. But I will tell you that one of the things that we have been talking about a lot is the cabin fever associated with the pandemic and having to stay home. And a lot of people are posting, like, quote unquote funny memes about how they're going to kill their partners. So for those of us who are partnered and are under the same roof a lot with somebody, I think my husband and I have the advantages of we both still continue to go to work. Um, so we're not always in each other's faces, but when we are, it was getting a little bit tense. I was feeling really disconnected. And so, as scared as I am of traveling and of checking into hotels, because he's been asking since like March, let's go somewhere, let's go somewhere. And my stipulation was, okay, but we have to sleep in the car. And his answer was always, okay, but people will stab us and kill us if we fall asleep at a rest stop. Apparently, that's like a thing that happens. I don't know. I must have missed the news on that one. So I checked into a hotel room for one night and I said, we are just going to talk. And so, yeah, we just had conversation, and I did take a bottle of Lysol and I sprayed everything down. And a note of caution: if you spray Lysol directly on wood, it leaves a really bad white film. So I'm waiting for the hotel to send me a bill. They haven't yet. On that note, please connect with your partners. You don't have to go into a hotel room. In hindsight, that was probably a waste of money and a waste of my anxiety. Um, just even going through a drive-through for coffee or for ice cream or a walk in the park together while the kids are playing on the Lysol down equipment, which I also have done. Um, I think that that's really, really important, because at the end of this, inshallah, we want to come out stronger as families and certainly as partners raising Muslim kids together. So that's really important. And it was a surprise. My husband did not know about this, so it was really awesome. It would be a good idea to talk to your partner first so that they know what the expectations are. Um, and then I will go on to our soapbox, which is it's November 1st. Y'all have 48 hours to get your votes in. We are getting text messages that our votes have not yet been counted, and we're early ballot people who turned in like I turned my ballot in the ballot box. My mother-in-law mailed it through the mail system. So we're just kind of trying to make sure that we all get counted. Zeba was talking earlier to me about how it's very likely that there will be a recount, so we won't have an answer on Tuesday. But if any time is a time to make collective dua as Muslims, collective prayer. It is now to please, my specific prayer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is please get rid of the oppressors all over the world and save the meek. Because in every tradition we believe that those being oppressed deserve justice and freedom. And we as Americans, even though our oppression looks different than somebody's oppression in like a fascist regime, we are quickly getting there. So it would be really nice to change that narrative as quickly as possible. On that note, I'm going to talk about narratives on our Momming While Muslim Facebook group, which is Momming While Muslim, three words squished together. We have put a call out for your mom stories. Now, y'all know that Momming While Muslim is basically either talking about Zeba and my mom stories and experiences in an effort to kind of connect with y'all and tell you that a lot of what you're experiencing, in fact, 99% of what you're experiencing is completely normal. And so, what some of us may think as ineptitude or bad parenting is really just fine. And guess what? Everybody else is doing it too. In fact, I am still wearing my pajama pants under here. I don't know if you can tell my, oh gosh, I forgot her name, the leopard wearing lady on that show, the tiger show. Like I'm wearing my leopard today. Maybe you can't see it. That's okay. We are asking for your specific mom stories, narratives in written form because Zeba and I are trying really hard, kind of like Love Meets Life, the anthology of love stories that I participated in with Tara EJ of Love Glasses Revolution. We're trying to create a book anthology of your normal mom stories because you are not just normal, you are spectacular and beautiful in your unique experiences, and we want to hear about those. So the Google form is in our Mommy Wellness and Facebook group, and I will go ahead and post a link for you who Instagram on our link tree so that you can have access to that Google form and go ahead and fill it out. We kind of sent it piecemeal to folks and then have had it on the group for a while, but we really want to get this started. We are really motivated to get mom stories out there and tell our own stories rather than have somebody who's not Muslim, not a mom, and not a female talking about the Muslim woman perspective. That really is a pet peeve of Zeba and mine. So please submit those stories. Toot sweet. If we could get them in 7 days, that'll be awesome. We will post updates on the group and on Instagram. In the meantime, I have the pleasure to introduce today Dr. Hodan Muhammad, or Dr. Hodon. Excuse me, my voice just gave. Dr. Hodon, a board certified OB gynecologist and women's health advocate and wellness career coach. She is also an author, speaker, entrepreneur, and focuses on women's health and wellness on her social media platforms. I discovered her on her podcast because as a Muslim woman podcaster, I'm always on the search for awesome, amazing Muslim woman podcasters, and I found her. And when you hear her, you will know she has the voice, and I know she's heard that before. But I'm so excited to have her on here. Welcome, Dr. Hodan. Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum salam. I just was sharing everything on our social media handles so that we are all here together and I can see each other.
I
I'm
love
trying
it.
to
I
allow.
love it. I know, centering your screen, that's always fun. I think we might have lost your audio, Dr. Hodan.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, I got you
Oh,
now. Yeah. It might just be your
okay.
beautiful sweater, like muffling your microphone a little bit.
Hold on. I put it on the other side so you wouldn't, with my oxygen thing, I'm trying to not, get too tangled, as they say.
Yeah.
Is that better?
I think that's a
If
lot
not, I'll
better.
just hold it up
So
higher. Okay.
you mentioned the oxygen, and if it's okay with you, would you like to tell our audience why you're on oxygen? Because I was telling you before we recorded what a superwoman I think you are, mashallah, for, I don't know, sitting
Mashallah.
upright, first of all, much less coming onto a podcast as a guest. But if you're comfortable, would you like to share a little bit about what happened to you this year in 2020? Twice?
Yes. Yes. I would love to share. Mashallah, I've been sharing. It's interesting. It's ironic. I started to share more about COVID. And then I think, I don't know, maybe a month later, a little month and a half later, then I got exposed at work. Probably towards that end of March, mid-March-ish, when there was quite a bit of people that was exposed at work in our floor. And April onwards, I was in a hotel room for 4 weeks, so I could not expose my family. My
Hmm.
parents, mashallah, God bless their soul, they had come to visit mid-March and then were shut down, couldn't go back to Ohio. So it was a
Hmm.
perfect blessing in disguise. And it was hard. I spent that month, I have a history of high blood pressure, asthma, and my weight was also just barely over the obesity level. So I had the risk factors. I was not scared to go to work. I did my duty, but I was scared in that hotel room. I'll be honest with you. There were many nights that my oxygen level, normal oxygen level is like 90, 96, 97, 98. You could, wing it, with that. But it went down to the 70s. And I just prayed that
Oh,
I would
wow.
wake up the next day. And because I knew myself, and it's this all this audio and educational, podcast we're doing is not medical advice. It's educational. Please note that. And I'm not
Mhm.
giving you medical advice, not create a patient-physician relationship, but just sharing my story. And hopefully one person gain some golden nugget, then we're grateful we did our part. So I knew I couldn't handle a vent, to be honest with you, which is the machine that helps to put you, breathe for you. So I did everything I best could under the guidance of my wonderful physicians, physician friends, even new physician friends I made Facebook friends with. Dr. Farhan is one of them, who helped
Uh-huh.
guide me. And Dr. Sam was already my naturopathic doctor. And he guided me to get IV vitamin C after I felt safe to leave the hotel room, and that helped recovery. So I was off for 3 months, went back to work for about a month, a little over a month, and to be honest with you, I knew I couldn't handle it, and um, I relapsed in August, actually by myself. The first week of August, my oxygen just started to drop again, and I was in the 80s
Mhm.
consistent, and just
Mhm.
praying to God I would get over this relapse. And then we're, moving my car from Ohio to Georgia. That's where we live now. And my father, I said, Dad, you need to do the long trip with me. Like we've always done road trips together, mashallah. My dad, Muhammad Ali, engineer Muhammad Ali Adami. Adami is his nickname. And he's like,
Mhm.
sure, let's do another road trip, honey, like we've done before. And so we stopped at over family friends, excuse me, our family, excuse me. And one of them was asymptomatic carrier. We didn't know. And that's the part of
Mhm.
this virus. We keep your mask on, but when you eat, and you're staying with somebody, it's not the same. We thought that was the safest house. One of the family members is immunocompromised, but any one of us can pick up this virus and not have any symptoms. And maybe later show up. And that's what happened. She was wonderful. She called me as her symptoms came up and her test came positive. And that was the day I went to the ER, August 27th. Ended up 8 days in the hospital, majority of that time in the ICU. And, I was given the plasma medication that helps people to fight off the virus
Mhm.
before they build up these antibodies, these fighting markers that help you protect you against you are exposed to the same thing. So we did that. And then I did the Remdesivir, which helps to stop the virus from growing more. And I only did that for 2 days because my liver test went up really high. And when you sign that paper, they tell you all the risks you take. You're like, well, I'll take everything because I want to live.
Mhm.
And so you basically sign away your life. And that's what I did.
Yeah.
So unfortunately, that didn't work. And I was told there's no more options. And I was heading to an event and I was going to hang out with them for 2 to 3 weeks. And I said, mashallah, no, I'm not doing that. And I would like to try the IV vitamin C that saved me the first time. And I sent them many educational, evidence-based medicine for this. And luckily, one of again, Facebook has saved me again. Being a part of Facebook groups does help. And one of the doctors here in Atlanta stepped up, and she's my family doctor now, Dr. Barbara Jones. Thank you, who called the pulmonologist. The pulmonologist and her and I had a three-way conversation in my ICU bed with oxygen blasting at me, 15 liters of oxygen going
Yeah.
basically 60 miles an hour. That's how much pressure they needed to open my lungs. And I said,
Yeah.
okay, I need this. I said, the last resort. You said there's nothing else for me. So they said, sure, finally, after several days of coaxing. And within 2 days, I was out of the ICU because of the IV vitamin C, but by the grace of Allah. And so I cannot so for me, when you say you can show up here, in that time I was already close to God, but I became much more closer to God, and how fragile we are as human beings, and how God tests us, and He tests our patience, and He tests our love for Him and for life. And I said, I had a lot of moments of thinking and of being shown things too, and I knew that if I walk away from this, that my work was even going to be much more going aggressive, regardless of what comes in my path. And so I made that promise, and I'm still keeping that promise, my dear. So that's why I'm here today, regardless of, and we will talk about it more. We'll get to that.
Yeah.
What's happened in my life.
Yeah, I mean, I've been following you along on socials ever since I discovered your podcast and then, your socials and your platform there. And we usually ask the moms that come on here as guests to tell us their mom stories, but, we want to express our condolences for what ended up a really terrible tragedy for you, where you lost your father, and we ask Allah to forgive him and give him the highest ranks in Jannah. And we just love to hear
I
some
mean,
words about your dad before we
thank
ask
you.
about
Thank you
your
so
mom's
much.
story.
Yes, Jazakallah khair. So my dad, Engineer Muhammad Ali Adami, as his nickname, as my people call him, originally from Somalia, and my father always believed in me. At the young age of 5 year old, I wanted to go see where he would get those nice toys from, and that changed the trajectory of my life. Okay, so I wasn't supposed to go on this trip with them to England, but I found 5 year old myself found my way to get on their trip, crash a party, as they say, and a business slash health trip for them. And lo and behold, my country goes into a civil war. My father went back and to get family back out. It took him 6 years to be reunited with us in Canada, but he never gave up. He wanted us to have a better life, and that ended up us coming to the States for my dreams to become a doctor. Because in England, the responsibility he gave me before he left us was to take care of your mom, and I became my mom's doctor. So that's my inspiration of becoming a physician, my Hoyo, my mom. And so, but he is my inspiration of love of science. And as a girl, sometimes in other cultures, you understand it yourself, to sacrifice everything for a girl is not an easy feat, and to have that pressure from family and friends. And so that was his whole life was dedicated to me and my mom, and my dream of becoming a doctor. And so everything I am, everything I do, everything I've done is for him and my mom, and we've done it together. And so I always called us the Three Musketeers, mashallah. And we're still going to be the Three Musketeers because his spirit, his energy, and everything lives through us. And my sons, they have, mashallah, I've gotten to know him, and they embody him, especially my youngest looks like him and talks like him. And so what he embodies as a father is that, he was my best friend. He wasn't just a father, and he didn't believe in this girls should need to just stay home, and they need to be educated, and they needed to be an important productive member of the society. And when you educate a girl, you educate a generations and beyond, and they need to be at the table of making decisions. And so that was my father. He encouraged not only me, now as I see his passing, so many people around the world, and that encouragement I hope to continue to do my own. And so he loved to walk. He unfortunately was tragically killed. There's still an open investigation, apparently walking across the street. And inshallah, we'll know more. So I ask for your prayers to really find out the truth, because we don't have much
Amen.
witnesses. And and inshallah, my father and Jannah, he will be, and he has peace. And for us, for now, is not to dwell on this is Allah's wish, and I'm grateful the last 2 months I had with him, and we made some wonderful plans together, and I'm gonna put them for full forth. But as my dad always told me, honey, man proposes, God disposes. So until
Yeah.
whatever time I have left, I'm gonna try to put the plans to come to life, inshallah, God willingly.
Yeah, I love that. And I know, like, even on socials when we communicated, you said, this is the will of Allah, and like your strength and resilience, your fortitude, your faith. It was really inspirational. And we do hope that you get closure in your dad's death.
Yes,
And in the meantime, live out his legacy, because that's what you are.
inshallah. Yes,
And we
yes.
love that. So, on
Thank
that
you.
note, because he's raised such a beautiful, strong woman, we would like to know more about her and a little bit about your mom's story. How many kids do you have? How old are they? What's your mommying philosophy?
Yes, thank you. I really love your podcast. I was just searching for to connect with mommies, and then mommies who have Muslim background, because you understand you're jumping between two worlds,
Mhm.
and whether it's you're coming from a different background and then your religious background. So it's like I'm Dr. Hodan Muhammad. That's my full name. So when people walk in the room, they're like, "Who?" Like they're like, "How? How do you? Wait, you have no accent. You have." where you don't have a
Mm-hmm.
headscarf. Before I didn't have it. Now you have a headscarf. Like they're like, what is so it really
Yeah.
feels nice to be connected to people who are going the same journey. So I have 2 boys. I have a 6-year-old boy that just turned 6 in October. I have a
Mashallah.
3-year-old boy, mashallah, yeah, Yasin, and the youngest one is Harun. He's 3.
Oh,
And my
Ataman.
mommy's story is that I'm an OBGYN, but I had no idea what I was gonna expect for my first one of being on the other side. I knew everything I told
Wow.
my patients, and so I started coaching myself mentally what I would tell my patients, and I was like, wow, especially the last part. And I don't know if your
Mm-hmm.
male listeners, that last part when your wife is like probably losing it and doesn't know what is going on. It's the worst pain at the end. Like you go in a twilight zone. And I could tell the nurse was like looking at me like, I just yelled at her, ring of fire. And she knew what she meant, because that's what I tell my patient. Okay, you're gonna feel a ring of fire. You want to climb up the bed. And I probably did climb up the bed myself too. I was like, about to climb up you better give me something, because I'm about to lose it. And so so I
I have
definitely
not heard Ring
sympathize
of
with my
Fire.
patients on another level. You have
I
It's
haven't.
called the Ring of Fire. That's our
That's
like
awesome.
code name in the labor and delivery room. Ring of Fire. She's about to she's having pain. Like this hospital is really nice. They had lidocaine, so they can numb up the area for me a little bit
Oh,
more, because I was pushing for 3 hours
great.
with my first kid. I
Oh,
was like, I my the God bless him. He was so patient. The previous person above the shift, she was just ready to do a C-section on me, because she
yeah.
had it. That was one of her comments. And I looked at her, I said, did you just tell me because you had a C-section, it's okay for me to have a C-section? I'm gonna need you to take a walk outside of my room, and I'm not having a C-section. Okay.
I
I don't have
love
time
that.
for a
I
C-section
love that
today.
you had all the education walking in, and like throughout the pregnancy, you had all the education about the pregnancy and more, but you still didn't know what the heck. And that makes me feel so validated
Yeah.
because,
Yeah.
I
You
was
don't
okay with the science up until like the very end because I had a late pretermer and basically hemorrhaged
mm,
out. I had a succentoriate
mhm.
lobe. So what for the audience, what that means
Oh
is an extra lobe of
yes.
my placenta. So when the head came down at 37 weeks, I don't know what happened. My son must have somersaulted and got right on that extra lobe, and it was bleeding out and connected to the rest of my placenta. So it was really important to
Oh
get him out so that both of us wouldn't die. Um, but
yes.
that's when I think I started losing the science, and then I just went into full panic mom mode for the first time in my life
Yes.
because, what
Yes.
happens, during that last moment, those last moments of delivery, and then what happens when you bring the baby home, I don't think has a lot to do with science because you're just in this fog of confusion and hormones
Yes.
everywhere.
And
And it's like,
fatigue.
I went to medical school. I know better. What the hell? What did I used to tell my patients? That's not working, you know? So it's a really humbling experience. So I'm really glad to know that somebody with your credentials also had that. So I
Yeah,
feel a
like
lot
it's
better.
like all the science, all the steps, but you haven't been through that process. And not to say that
Exactly.
not my colleagues who haven't been through it, they don't have the same understanding or cannot have the same empathy. But it's like, you can explain all you want in a textbook, and I can explain all I can to you to prepare. But at that moment, it's really important to ask questions. And that's the big point for me was like, I knew it was like, okay, I have not reached the standard. Once you get to 6 centimeters, that's changed now. When you go, you have to get to 6 centimeters before somebody, unless there's a medical indication for you to have a C-section, you've got to get that person a chance to get to 6 centimeters, then push up to 4 hours. Then they failed. So so it was a big group. My OBGYN, she took care of me the first 2 days, and then it was another 2 other groups. And the gentleman that came on at the end, he was awesome. I already met him the week before. And my husband
Mhm.
actually called. He's like, you know what? I think he's going to be the one to deliver. I'm like, how do you know that? And then it was like, great. And the shift came out. I was like, okay, good. You're
Of
more
course.
relaxed. So, and he didn't push me and he didn't bother me. But I was going to tell him, okay, after 3 hours, I am done. You can wheel me to the OR. Like I am done. And then finally,
I'll
my
walk
my
myself to
oldest
the OR.
finally listened. Yeah, I'll walk myself to the OR. Like I'm done pushing. So
Yeah,
my
yeah,
oldest finally
yeah.
came, and but I had severe preeclampsia during that labor process. So I was on magnesium. So I was
Oh
tired.
gosh.
So and it makes you drowsy. That magnesium helps to protect your brain, but I'm on like this medication makes you drowsy, and here I am pushing for 3 hours. I'm like, whoo, I finally am done. But your hard work really does start after, like you said. Like when we
Mhm.
were scared to take our baby home. We're like,
Mhm.
and
That's a
the one of
bagged
the
up
nurses made
baby.
fun of me, and it was a good make fun of me. She's like, I know you only stay for this part, you deliver and you walk away, but honey, this is when the real work starts. I was like, I know,
Oh, yeah.
I need some help. So I need some prepare me before I go home with this little baby because I'm scared.
Yeah, yeah. It's
So,
a really scary
mashallah.
process. Yeah. Alhamdulillah
And my second
for
one,
the experience.
alhamdulillah, was the second severe preeclampsia. I'll cut it short there, but it was after 5 days after I had the baby. So you can get
Oh.
preeclampsia, high blood pressure, pregnancy, during pregnancy, in labor, but you can also get it after, ladies. So don't think a headache is normal. Don't think bleeding more than one pad in 1 hour is normal. The complications that women are dying in this country, and more so Black women, 4 times likely in this country, is complications more actually after. And so if you have any inkling issue, I always say that in pregnancy or in postpartum, just go call your doctor. If you don't feel like you're being heard or addressed, then go to labor and delivery. There's should be somebody there to assess you, point
Mhm.
blank.
Absolutely. I think that's really important because we recently lost a Black physician. I believe she was a full physician, an attending, not a resident, or was she still a resident?
No, she was a resident. She was a chief resident, Dr. Williams. She was out of Indiana, and
Was it Charlotte
she was at
Wallace?
the hot Shanice.
Shanice. Okay.
And she, yes, and she was, correct me if I'm wrong, and she was the one who was the head. So chief means like you're chosen to be the head of all the residents. That's how smart
Mhm.
and dedicated this young woman was. And she did not, and you would think, right, being a doctor, that can help you at times, but not necessarily. Yeah, so Niche Wallace, make sure I said her name right, and at in Indiana. And we don't know the full story, so I'm not going to lay blame on anything. There are complications that happen in the OB world that we do our best. And like I said, we are not God. There are things above us that as best
Mhm.
as we couldn't stop it. And
Sure.
no matter how hard you try. But there's always lessons learned in everything that can come up of this case and other cases too. But unfortunately, in this United States, we do have a lot of complications from pregnancy and deaths that shouldn't be, that are preventable. And the NPR started sounding the alarm about this in 2017. Actually, when I had my last child, when I was also told that my blood pressure wasn't high enough when I went back, and I had to vouch for
Mhm.
myself to be taking care of the high risk team, a higher group that deals with high risk pregnancies. So we got work to do, sister.
We got a lot of work to do, and one of the things that we say on Mommy One Muslim is to believe Black women, you know? Believe all patients when they say something, but
Yes.
specifically Black women, like, no matter in what realm, but certainly in the healthcare, we know, what racial disparities exist in this country on a regular basis, but just know from 2 doctors, they also occur in the medical field. So it matters what color you walk into the exam room, no joke, and it's not funny. You know, it is
Yeah.
unethical, in fact, and so we need to do a lot of work to resolve that. So, since we're talking about OB-GYN and all the stuff that can you talk to us a little bit about what led you to this field, and then a little bit about your practice?
Yeah, so I actually wanted to be a pediatrician. No joke. I love
Oh
kids, and
gosh,
I thought that's what was my goal. And then I was in medical school during my rotations, and I was like, I have no idea what's wrong with them. I just ended up wanting to play with them. And I was
mm,
like, this is not for me. They're cute. And also, I can't see them this sick. I can't do this. Sorry, guys. So then on my third year, I liked surgery. I actually loved it. I was actually planning to apply for general surgery. I had everything planned for me. The doctor who took out my gallbladder when I was in college was like gone congoing for me. We already made the connections. And then here comes one of my, I think it was my last rotation was OBGYN. My dad
hmm
had planted the seed, like, why don't you learn something about yourself? But I was like, I like being in the OR. And so then I was like, oh my God, I can be in the OR. I can have that long connection with women. I can learn about myself. And I had so much fun in my OBGYN rotation. I canceled everything for general surgery. And if it's meant to be, it's meant to be. So I
yeah.
ended up being OBGYN, ended up going to Michigan. My parents wanted me to stay in Columbus, Ohio. I was like, sorry, I'm going to go with this program. Shout out to Henry Ford Wyandotte Hospital. This is like the place where I'm supposed to be. And I loved it. And when I came out, I went into an academic practice. We were covering 3 hospitals for almost over 2 years. That was really hard. Almost 2.5 years. Well, anyways, that was a long story short. We went from 6 doctors to 3 doctors. I still love what I was doing, but I wasn't seeing my firstborn as much, and I was burnt out. So I decided to become a hospitalist. You're like, what's a hospitalist? Because people only think it's internal medicine doctors that do that. Well, there's a lot of medical specialties where they're doing 24-hour shifts. That gives them a chance to have a life but not give up medicine. And that really brought back my love of medicine. I also did traveling work, which is locums doctors. Traveling nurses go to different sites and cover shifts. So that's what I did with my most of my second pregnancy until I settled in Michigan doing hospitalist 24-hour shifts more consistently. So I've done that for 3 years. I love it. And actually, it is more adrenaline rush. I'm an adrenaline junkie. And so, like, you cover triage or the ER version of labor and delivery. So anybody can walk in, any problem can walk in that women are dealing with. And you are their doctor. And then you're also covering labor and delivery. You're watching the fetal monitoring. It's Big Brother, basically. We call it Big Sisters, watching you all the time on labor and delivery, watching the tracing of your baby. And it's always good to be at a hospital that has an in-house doctor because emergencies happen and people need to make critical decisions within a few seconds. So I always say my specialty, there's nothing like my specialty, and we don't get the credit that we deserve. We make decisions for 2 people at once. So we make critical second decisions for 2 people at once, 2 lives at once. And it's not easy. It's a lot of pressure, but it's a blessing. And when you hear that special cry, there's nothing like it when that baby comes into the world. It's always all worth it. So if you need that emergency C-section, if you need me to be the one delivering with you as your doctor is running up the stairs trying to make it, I'll be there for you. Sometimes we use vacuums to help babies out to shorten that process if there's an emergency so we can avoid a C-section for you. We use that vacuum to bring out your baby, and so we assist your doctor starting in emergency cases. So it's fun, it's exciting, it's adrenaline rush, and I'm missing it, but I'm trying to get better. And so make sure, ladies, you have someone that is always in-house to help protect you and your baby as an in-house doctor.
Oh, I love that advice. I really, really do, because we're really hoping today that you can tell us, from both perspectives, because you've been on the COVID side too. And then as an OB, what should women who are pregnant during a pandemic be worried about? Like, what should their, even if I would say even before pregnancy, how should you set it up if you want to have children? And then what should you look out for in addition to the regular prenatal care while you are pregnant?
It's really important, before you want to get, if you want to be, inshallah, want to get pregnant, we always say do your best to make your appointments with your regular doctors, especially if you may not know it, but getting a regular preventative care checkup is important, at least maybe 3 to 6 months out, because some people need like updates on vaccines, and some vaccines you have to wait 6 months out to get, like the
Oh, wow.
MMR, that's really important, okay? If you're low in your titers there. The other thing is we like you to be on taking your prenatals that has folate 3 months before. So, but if there's medical problems, push things that need to be checked out and tested, there might be some contraindications, meaning you can't do it while you're pregnant. So make sure you put your best health first forward. And I always say that to all women, because pregnancy is not a walk in the park. And it can actually bring up to light issues that you've had and that weren't aware of if you weren't getting regular checkups. And making sure even during COVID time now is that you keep your regular appointments with your OBGYN, because things can change. And you don't want to be like, oh, it's COVID, I don't want to go see people because I'm going to get the virus from people in the office. People are taking their standard precautions and then beyond, because as OBGYNs, we are caring for 2 patients, remember, at once. We're trying to not help you, be in a situation of now you're having exposure to COVID. And so best things is best. Avoid sick people. You should be doing that when before COVID times, right? And how can you do that is limit your exposure to who you see, wearing your mask, keeping your social distance. And I'm really going to hit a pain point here, which is hard, is all those baby showers. I see so much on Snapchat, baby showers, hugging, holding, no mask on for these moms to be, and my heart is sinking, because as
Okay.
pregnant women, The flu, when we get it and we don't get the flu vaccine, that's my next thing. Please get your flu vaccine. We said that before COVID. We're still going to say it even more so after COVID. Is that you, good job, are more likely to have complications and die from the flu when you're pregnant. Our immune system, that's the fighting system that fights off infections, doesn't work as well because it's stressed out from a growing new human baby growing inside of us, right? So why would you stress it out more and expose yourself to these viruses that COVID, we don't really understand the long-term impacts that it can have on those who are exposed to it. And so I have long-term impacts. I've got my lung issues. I've got my heart racing issues. I got workups I still got to do for my heart because I'm swollen all over. So please don't take it lightly that if you get it, you'll be fine. We've seen women that ended up in the ICU right after a C-section who were COVID positive and not wake up for weeks. Unfortunately, some have died. We've seen more pregnancy losses, miscarriages. We've seen women more with high blood pressure because of this COVID. So that's why I don't delay. If something's not right, call your doctor. If they told you to go get checked in or they tell you to watch for a little bit and it still's not better, go get checked in at the hospital. Please don't be scared of the hospital. And your risk of you waiting at home are more tragic than that can be more tragic, unfortunately. If you go into respiratory distress where you can't breathe and you already have breathing issues, because guess what? Your lungs can't expand because you have a growing baby, right? So you breathe like shallow like this. And then you have respiratory distress, you have some problems that you're going to face. So go in when in doubt.
Yeah, go in when in doubt. And certainly when you're
And any
when you are
questions and
pregnant.
you don't feel like you're
Oh, go ahead.
sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, don't just go in if you think there's a problem. Keep those prenatal appointments with or without the COVID risk, because I think the clinics are doing a really good job of not letting too many people in the waiting room. Some of them are making you wait in the car right until your appointment, until the doctor's going to see you. You're going to be wearing a mask. They're going to be wearing a mask. It is important because there are regular lab tests that you have to do throughout pregnancy that are really, really important. Don't skip them like I did and then bleed out and find out that your hemoglobin is like a 4. That's not a good way to find out anything about your health. Dr. Hodan, you were saying? Oh dear, I wonder if she maybe froze, which may have happened. I would not be surprised. Uh, I think the second question I had, or the first question that I had asked her was prenatal care, and she mentioned folic acid. That is to prevent spina bifida, and there was this whole campaign. I think it's the March of Dimes. You may have heard of. So that's what they are working against, and that's why we all take folic acid, especially those of us who don't use birth control. And you may get pregnant. You don't want to. Have a child whose spine hasn't fused, because that can lead to lifelong complications, paraplegia, incontinence, debility, lots of infections. The kids will be fine otherwise, cognitively and functionally, but not their southern regions. And so you want to make sure that your child has the best chance, especially if you're trying to get pregnant. Now, the second question that I was going to ask Dr. Hodan, and Joe's working on getting her back on, so we should be okay shortly. But in the meantime, preventive care, I think first and foremost, as Dr. Hodan just said, get your flu shots. We here believe in vaccines. If you don't, that's okay. Don't get it. I have one immunocompromised child who doesn't get her flu vaccine, even though it is a dead vaccine. It is not a live vaccine. There she is.
Thank
Perfect. I
you.
was just telling everybody, Dr. Hodan, to make sure and get their flu shots as part of their preventive health care. This is
Yes.
going to be important for women, children, and the elderly especially. And so let's talk a little bit about, regular preventive health care for women that they should be doing maybe at like every decade of life. Does that sound reasonable to you?
Yes. If it's okay, can I just touch on the breastfeeding one? Sorry. That in terms of breastfeeding for moms, if you
Oh,
are
I didn't
COVID
talk. Okay,
positive,
sure, absolutely.
yes, we were not telling women that they're a positive for COVID that they can't breastfeed. we're asking them to take extra precaution, wear their mask, keep their hands clean, keep that safe distance. It's hard. You cannot keep your baby 6 feet distant from the breast. Like,
No.
no, that's not going to happen. But you can cover up with a shawl. If you are coughing and, having those, symptoms, fever, you're coughing, you're not really stable in the sense that, nausea, vomiting, and you can pump for your baby and then give the bottle, have your family member give the bottle to the baby. So it is, you have fought this virus, and hopefully you can pass some immunity to the baby. It's not 100% guaranteed. You have some of the antibodies in a small study that they found that antibody against COVID, but you have to take the same precaution. So I just also wanted to point that out because I get that question a lot. It's like, I can't breastfeed now because, and there are some transmissions that we have seen. They're very small. And some of the miscarriages where they've able to take samples of the placenta, they have seen the COVID virus, SARS-2 COVID virus there. But we still have a lot to learn about this virus, but there's nobody telling you, please don't listen to people telling you cannot breastfeed your child.
Oh, I love that. Yeah, we have some hospital horror stories where newborns are being removed from their mom until the mom's COVID comes back negative, and I'm like, I don't even know where that protocol is coming from, but I'm glad to hear that um, that's not evidence-based and you don't believe in that.
And also, I mean, there are some, it's changing. So that's what I really want people to know now that the numbers are going up. What I've seen change from, March to now was that the number of people who could be there in the room, it could go down to just the mom in some regions. It went down to, like in New York, it could be just the parent, just the two parents there, or a partner support for her. No families in the waiting room. And actually, sometimes that's not a bad idea because it gives more time mom and baby to reunite. And also, when mom and dads go home, it's really important for them not to have the whole family to come and visit the baby because the baby has no immune system. The first 6 months, I would say, take a break from people coming to visit unless, they've tested, negative. They are people who are doing their best, but that's something between you and your pediatrician to decide. But in the hospital, you're not going to have visitors coming in and out. And it's also probably going to go back to those stricter rules. So ask the hospital you're delivering at, what's their rules? Because it's not standard of care. Like you said, it's horror stories at some hospitals.
And
Now
I
to the
am
extreme.
sorry to all,
Yeah.
well, I'm really sorry in advance to all those Muslim moms out there whose extended family is banging the door, even in pre-COVID times, to, oh, we came to see the baby, we came to see the baby. And it's really nice, but they're not washing their hands. Half of them smoke indoors too, or they do the
Yep.
hookah. And they all want to touch the baby and kiss the baby's face. It's like, no, we usually make people wait a month before they're allowed to come. That way we can build up some antibodies with breast milk. That's what you used to do. But I feel so bad for all of y'all in COVID times having newborns and having to stop those Muslim families who are coming to claim their right as auntie, uncle, grandma,
It
grandpa.
is
It's going to be
hard.
really hard for y'all. Very, very
Y'all
emotionally
need to
hard.
make Zoom parties. Make your Zoom parties for your baby
Mm,
shower. So guess what? You prepare them and in advance. This is how you're going to see your this baby. Exceptions you can make. Grandparents. I mean, some people wait 2 to 3 months to do that. And then Zoom. Here you go. Here's the baby. And if you knock on my door, I'm not opening the door. And that's how you put your foot down because this is your child's life. This is actually your life because you're still
mhm,
immunocompromised, recovering from this whole 9 months of growing a whole new life in you. So
mhm.
it's your life that depends on your baby's life. So, and then it's really hard. I have the same issues in our culture too. So good luck.
Yeah, absolutely. Good luck to all of you. I think that Zoom party idea is fabulous. You can send invites ahead of time and get that all knocked out of the way. So there's no question and nobody's booking tickets to try to fly in. When I've had relatives fly in this summer, I've said, sure, you can stay somewhere else. And after a COVID negative test, you may come over because you just sat in a
Yes,
petri dish for hours. I don't care if the flight was only half an hour. So that's awesome. Are you ready to move on to preventive care through the decades for women?
yes, yes.
Okay, let's
Yeah.
do it.
So for preventative decade, I mean, and we can start off with the young girls, and this is also
Mhm.
important for boys because I have boys. Important
Yep.
to get to talk with your pediatrician about getting that Gardasil. We say that around 15 would be good. That way, they don't get 2 shots. You can start as early as 9, but then they'll get 3 shots. So the Gardasil vaccine is to help them with dealing with the HPV virus, human papillomavirus, which can cause, or has been known now more with research, oral cancers, okay? And it really affects women more because it affects the cervix. So the cervix is at the end of the vagina, and that is the doorway. So it has this kind of a shape. This is where we do your pap smear test that we start at age 21 now. And that cervix, though, is connected to your womb where the baby grows, right? So that's a doorway, but that can has a lot of issues. So the human papillomavirus, the common cause of that having cancer there is that virus. And more high risk types are 16 and 18. And so when you're young in your 20s, we believe your body can clear it out. So we don't do as much pap smears as often. It's more every 3 years. And once you get above 30, then we check if you have that virus, HPV virus. And then we can do that along with pap smearing. That will push it every 5 years. Some people still like to do the every 3 years, regardless if they've had the HPV test. And so and that continues up to age 65. If for women who have had, history of the cancer, we always say wait, do it 20 years after. So that might push you above age 65 to get that regular pap smear. We encourage our women to still do their family medicine visits and get their cholesterol checked, yearly checkups with that, check for diabetes. We could do that too as well. And there's a lot of OBGYNs that do that yearly checkups along with their just an annual visit. So you still should see your OBGYN every year for an annual visit and pelvic exam. What you see and examine is much and more important than just your pap smear. We're not only here for your pap smear. That's what I'm going to say. Okay, just because I don't need to see you for another 3 years. No, you need to see us every year. And we need to make sure and check everything's going fine. And the next big steps is, getting your mammogram started at age 40. And so sometimes some women with your history and knowledge, and some with this now popularity of doing genetic testing, if you are a carrier of certain genes like the BRCA1 and 2 and others, we want to, make sure we do that also. Counseling on when you're done having children, what are your wishes in keeping certain parts of your body to help decrease your risk of developing breast cancer. Now we know you have that gene, and that could be taking out the tubes that connect to your ovaries. That could be taking out the tubes and ovaries or the uterus. So some people, it all depends. So you just want to make sure, because that BRCA is not for breast cancer only. There's risk also for ovarian cancer when you have those. And so I'm not going to get into the nitty-gritty details of which one means, because I confuse the viewers, but BRCA testing is not just for breast cancer. It also tests your risk for ovarian cancer. And the ovaries is where we have our eggs that we're born with as children, and we start to have periods and the eggs start to decrease, and it's really important as women, if you're trying to get pregnant. So I'm going to quickly go back to the 30s, is 35 and above is when, we have higher risk of, our eggs we're born with, they may have more deformities, issues with them. And so doesn't mean you're going to have children with abnormalities. So please don't take that as that, but know that risk. Okay. And also, if you try for 6 months, you're above 35 years of age to try to get pregnant with you and your husband, then you need to go see your OBGYN. Preferably, you should have started to speak the discussion with your OBGYN, with your preconception counseling we talked about. And when you want to get pregnant before, you can plan it out, make sure you're in good health with your OBGYN and your family doctor. But then they can refer you to a specialist that does an extra training, infertility, reproductive specialist that can work with you so you don't lose precious time in trying to, inshallah, achieve your goal of getting pregnant. Mammograms,
awesome.
do it every year, above 40, please. Don't do this 2-year thing. It's all about cost and savings. I'm being honest. I don't sugarcoat it. I want you ladies doing your annual mammograms every year. 50 years of age. This may change in our lifetime, doctor. You know that. There's a lot of people dying of colon cancer in their 30s and 40s, really more in their early 40s. And so we don't start colon cancer screening with colonoscopy to age 50. So I'm looking forward to this change to hopefully change in the next time in our lifetime as well, too. So people start getting screened. But if you have a family history of it, push for it to be screened earlier as well, too. And then those are the big ones, really. Making sure you've got your pneumonia vaccines, making sure you get your bone testing as you get older, to check, for osteoporosis. But I would say, young ladies, start your multivitamin now at a young age, because our bone strength starts to decrease 30 onwards. So it's like you build up as much bone strength before 30 years of age. So if not, take your multivitamin, exercise, avoid the things that help weaken your bones. Smoking is one of them.
Yeah, don't smoke. That's awesome. I want to
Yeah.
take us back really quickly to the teen years because we've had a question in the past about, is Gardasil necessary, the HPV vaccine? Is that necessary for our Muslim kids who aren't going to be sexually active ever before they get married?
Yes, because the boy may be active before then, and now he's exposed your daughter, and things happen. I'm be honest with you, we're in a different time. Yes, we hope that they are not, but you have to be. Um, it's better to be safe than sorry. And I really,
Right.
their Merck commercial kind of hit me really hard as a mom myself. Is that yes, we raise our kids with all these values and things happen, and life happens, and people make mistakes, and they learn from it. And I'm not saying that perpetuating that, but you have to always say, what can I always do best as I can for my children? And it's not because they're going to
Hmm.
become promiscuous because they took this vaccine. It's because you don't know who their partner will be.
Hmm.
And I encourage that for moms of boys as well too, because they are the carriers of this virus, more likely.
Absolutely.
And so, not that to blame the boys, but they don't have any symptoms. But as women, we can't tell. They're the carriers that we can't tell. Let's start. Let me reword it. The women, we can tell when they start to have abnormal pap smears, and we're doing procedures on their
Hmm.
cervix that they have it. But there's no
Hmm.
symptoms. There's nothing. It's just very silent. And so the Merck commercial basically shows this young kids, boy and a girl, and they're like in their they show the changes in how they're getting hurt. And now the cancer develops
Hmm.
when they're in college, but they should take you back to when they're like around 10 years old. And they said, "Mommy,
Right.
Daddy, did you know about this vaccine? Did did you know that this could have helped me?" Oh my gosh, like as a parent, for you to just hear that, that was like, wow, that was really good
Yeah.
marketing. But as a parent, like, wow,
It is really
yes,
good marketing. It's pretty biased,
it
but
hit
it's good
me
marketing.
home. It's pretty
Yeah,
biased.
it does.
So I'm a
Most
proponent
pediatricians
of
are offering it.
giving it. Yes, in their
Yeah.
office, pediatricians
Most
office it,
pediatricians are offering it at
OB-GYNs
10,
offering it.
11.
Yes, you can. That's why I said you could start at that age. Nine and above
Mhm.
is what you can offer. You can
Okay.
wait if you want to. They always say, because they don't want to just in case miss a chance of if somebody does start earlier than that, then you'll get 3 shots of that from that time frame, and it's
Mhm.
not all at once. So please don't think that, guys. But
Mhm.
it is, if you wait more a little bit later, then you'll get 2 shots
Okay, wonderful. So
instead of
you
the
can wait
three
until
rounds,
15
which
and
is
then
still
only have 2
sufficient.
shots. Okay.
You don't have to. That's why I say it's really individualize it. And just because of shots, you don't want to decrease the chance of really preventing it because of the number of shots. I don't want to perpetuate that either too. It's a
Mhm.
really
Mhm.
personal decision. It's something that you need to do your own research with any vaccine. I always like to share what the vaccine does, what you can do, when you can take it, and at the end of the day, you make that decision, but make it with an open mind and do your own research. I always say that. Please
Mhm.
don't run wild with people's opinions. Can you listen to the
Mhm.
science? I mean, we're having this problem in this country right now. Listen to the
Yeah.
science, read
Thank
upon
you.
it, and then please don't be reading YouTube and people's blogs about their personal experiences as a science to make your determination. That's my own final thought on that.
I love it. I have one question for you before I look for audience questions, but what are some of the cultural barriers that are keeping Muslim women and moms from getting the preventive care that they need?
um, it
And I
all
feel
depends too
like,
on the cultural and yeah.
the
Go
reason I
ahead,
bring that
sister.
up is because it was Muslim moms who were asking about the Gardasil vaccine and worried about, well, why would I give this to my kids if they're not going to be sexually active? And I'm like, you got a guarantee or a crystal ball that Allah handed you that He didn't give the rest of us? Like you don't know what could happen. And it doesn't mean that a child is intentionally having sex. There is rape that can happen, God forbid. So
Yeah.
why wouldn't you want to protect your child from passing that on to somebody or from receiving that from somebody? But I believe there's other cultural baggage that prevents us from getting preventive care. And I think it has to do a lot with our gender and our preconceived notions about what
Yes.
that means in a religious context. Can you speak to that?
Yeah, I think as a lot of cultures it's like a taboo, and that's like where I stemmed it from my Hoya means Somali mom Hoya chat, which is like the mom discussions
Hmm.
that you might have not have had because moms are like scared to talk about things that personally happened to them because they never had that unfortunately that open dialogue because culture you're not supposed to talk about anything down there. So for me to
Really?
say vagina, it's like, whoa, that's a big taboo. And I shared this on my page. So all y'all who are thinking, oh my gosh, you keep saying the vagina word, like get used to it because that's what we need
Hmm.
to do and talk about it,
It's not a bad
and the
word.
vagina is on the inside, right? And then there's the vulva that's on the outside, and that's a whole nother way of dealing with that as well too. And so it's like there's that cultural thing is like, no, I don't want anybody to see anything down there. I'm not going to go and get my annual exam. I'm not going to get my pap smear. And I've had this discussion with many people, and it's like, well, how do you know then something's not wrong if you're not getting these seen? So that's a cultural thing too. It's like, and in the Quran there are women who were treating men on the battlefield, and so that also is an impact. Some women will say, I will never be treated and be examined by a man. But if there's nobody else, honey, on the labor and delivery floor, and you need to be delivered, I'm just saying,
Baby's gonna come out.
like, there, and it's that's not really a religious cut put there. It's a cultural thing and what you're comfortable
Mhm.
with. So if you have those things that are really important to you, then you need to make a plan out. And I've had that discussion with women. It's like, I can help take over your delivery. I'm happy to, ma'am, as the hospitalist, but you need to have this plan out with your doctor in case she was not on call. Who's the next person? Da 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 da. Same thing. Like you want to
Mhm.
be referred to an only a female physician, then you need to make that plan out. So a lot of things is your wishes. We can do our best to accommodate, and but also remember that your health is in, mashallah, in Allah's hand, but it's in your hands too. He said learn, he said be take care of yourself, right? So learn about your body, and that means learning about it through whether going to physicians or reading about it through proper websites, sisters. But to avoid it and put your head in a sand and say nobody's allowed to touch my body, nobody's allowed to see my body, then that's one of the biggest cultural barriers I think that we believe, and
Mhm.
that it's not just Muslims. There's other cultures too feel that same way too, and we just have to be okay with just sometimes making a compromise. Allah makes tells us you have to keep an open mind. Like as my dad said, man proposes, God
God
disposes. A
disposes.
woman proposes in my instance, a woman proposes, God disposes, right? So make
Yeah,
sure you take care of your
absolutely.
health because there's so many. We are the matriarchs of the family, and regardless of what people say, whatever you work outside of the home or not, that you are the glue to the family, mashallah. And so we
Yeah.
need you to be around, inshallah, for a long time for yourself, more importantly, because you need to take care of yourself first. And that's where that cultural impact is, that we forget about ourselves. That's another big one that we face as women, is we put
Mhm.
everybody before us. And then when we fall, guess what? The whole family falls apart. And
Yeah.
it might be too late. I've seen women, unfortunately, who've not gotten pap smears. And I know that smell when I walk into that room of cervical cancer,
Oh.
and she's bleeding, and she's complaining of bleeding every time she has intercourse with her husband, or she's been
Mm.
bleeding so much. And I walk in and I know that smell, and it just breaks my heart. And I ask her, when is the
Oh.
last time you've been seen by a gynecologist? 10 years, 15 years, 20 years. I don't know. My kid is 25. And it's like,
You're scaring me.
this cervical cancer, I'm not serious. It's sad. I'm
Yeah.
like, cervical cancer takes 10 years to develop. It takes 10 years to develop. I
Mhm.
wish I saw you 10 years ago. I never say it at
Yeah.
that moment in my head, is that's what I'm saying in my heart as I hurt
Mhm.
for this
Yeah,
woman. So I don't want any of you
absolutely.
sisters in Charlotte to be in that predicament. Go get your mammograms, go get your annual exams, go get your pap smears checked. God made that organ for a reason. It needs to be checked out and be taken
Yeah.
care of. So don't ignore it. And I'll leave it at
And it's
that.
an amana or a trust given to you, this body. So to say, oh, it's qadr Allah, if I'm supposed to die and this is what I'm going to die of, I'm going to die, so I'm not going to check it out. That defeatist attitude is inherently un-Islamic. And I want to call
MashaAllah.
you
Yes.
out on it and ask you to reflect on it and turn it around and say, you are charged with taking care of this body, and leaving it to Allah is also not our way. We leave it to Allah and we tie our camel, as Dr. Hodan said. You have to do the work of taking care of the body and trusting that Allah will take it on the path it's supposed to go. So there
MashaAllah.
is a
Yes.
question going back to pregnancy from the audience, Dr. Hodan. If a woman who is pregnant gets COVID-19, is the baby going to be okay?
Well, you can't answer that 100%. Most of the things that we have seen studies wise is the moms haven't passed it on to the baby, which is good, but there is still a possibility you can. And so the
Mhm.
baby will be watched carefully by the pediatrician. But mashallah, only Allah at the end of the day makes that decision. God, whatever that is planned. So you can only do your best, sisters, to try to prevent to get the virus. And we've already shared some good tips on how to do that. So please watch back and follow back what we've shared.
There's a lot of people wishing you well and good health in the comments section, and they all adore and love you. And I just want to share this outpouring of love. I do hope you get an opportunity to go back and see that later. But in the meantime,
I
for
will.
those folks who are on who don't know you, can you tell them where they can find you?
Yeah, so I'm really grateful, my dear sister, Dr. Jaffrey, and both of your as co-hosts. Um, okay, so I have COVID brain, so I just blanked out on her name. Can you say it, please?
Zeba?
I'll be honest. Say thank you. So I do not want to say her beautiful name either. So one of the lasting effects of COVID, hopefully, is not for long. But I remember that the first 3 months was like fogginess, forgetting like simple things or people's names. I was like, please forgive
Mhm.
me. It's kind of like pregnancy brain. So I appreciate
Yeah,
you, Jazakallah khair,
I have
for the
that all the
opportunity.
time.
I know. I used to use that too now, but I guess now COVID is my excuse this year.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
to say
exactly.
Jazakallah khair, I hope that none of you deal with this virus, but unfortunately,
Amen.
many people would be affected by it, whether or not directly. And I pray for your families to be protected, and those who are now
Amen.
who are affected by it to have a speedy recovery and not to be a part of the long haulers like us. And inshallah, we'll
Amen.
hopefully do more talks together. Mommy One Muslim, you are doing amazing, and I will continue to spread the word about your beautiful program. And thank you for not making us feel like we're alone and building this community for us. So God bless you. You can follow me at Dr. Hodon, DrHodon. Jazakallah. My sisters, I love you. Thank
Wayak and
you.
Jazakallah to you for coming on and educating us so much. We've been waiting for this one and so excited for it. We know a lot of moms out there need this information. So we hope you take it to your sisters, your grandmothers, your mothers, your friends. Just put it out there, share it, because when we know better, we do better. And our goal is to do that together. Thanks everybody for joining us on another episode of Bombing While Muslim. Assalamu alaikum, everyone.
Alaikum.